Hello and welcome to Zombie Love Creations. Today I want to recreate my previous video on how I make a Foley leg bag cover. In this video I'll explain why I chose this design over the traditional cover you would wear on your leg. But first, we need to go over the supplies you will need. You will need 2 pieces of fabric cut to 15.5 inches by 13 inches, 1 piece cut to 13 inches by 2.5 inches for the handles. The stabilizer is optional, but I cut 1 piece 15.5 inches by 13 inches. For the thumb loops, you will need 4 4-inch pieces of ribbon, and for the pocket, 1 piece measuring 7 by 4 inches. For the fastenings, you will need buttons measuring from 19 millimeters to 22 millimeters, cam snaps and pliers or Velcro. I will be using snaps. Tools we need are scissors, measuring tape, iron and ironing board, chalk or marking pen, spray adhesive, pins or clips, thread and needle, or sewing machine. The machine I use is the Brother SQ9285 for its push to start button. I decided to make this project a scrap buster. I didn't have a large enough piece to cut 15.5 by 13 inches, but I had 2 pieces I could cut 15.5 by 6.5 inches. What I'm doing is sewing these 2 together right side to right side to create a piece I can use. The lines don't line up, but it won't matter when folded. I'm then taking it over to the ironing board, where I'm ironing the center crease down flat. And since I have the iron out, I'm going to go ahead and iron the pocket. I kind of just eyeball it. I don't really have measurements on how I iron it, but I iron all 4 sides down. And then I'm going to take it over to the sewing machine and sew all 4 sides. Stabilizer is optional, but what I'm going to do is iron the stabilizer to my inside fabric. Now that I've ironed it, I went ahead and ironed a crease in the center to give me more of an idea on where I need to place my buttons and my pocket. Just remember that we have a 1/2 inch seam allowance when centering your pocket. I'm going to go ahead and take this to the machine and sew along 3 sides, which will leave us 1 side open for the pocket. Alright, you can watch me make this look really easy, even though it felt like I was struggling. But what I'm doing is creating the handles. I'm folding it in half, then ironing it, and then I'm folding it in 4ths, then ironing it. I'll let you watch this while I tell you why I decided on this design. One day I came across a belly bag, and none of the places my insurance is contracted with even carries them. So it would all come out of pocket, and these bags are between $15 to $20 something each. So I decided to attempt making something that could allow me to use my leg bags as belly bags. First, I tried using my leg bag as a belly bag with a strap through it, but that was extremely uncomfortable, and it stuck to my skin and bunched up, and the nozzle pieces are hard and it would dig into my skin, causing sores. So I came up with the idea of making a sleeve to keep it off of my skin. Well, my sleeve idea then turned into a fanny pack. So that's how I came up with the idea of this shape. I added buttons to attach the bag to keep it flat so it wouldn't kink, and on the bottom I added snaps so I could have this adjustable strap since all of my bags were different sizes. So it accommodates all of them. Later I realized that it was too much work to unsnap it and re-snap it after each time I emptied. So from now on I'm only adding the top buttons. I added the handles because it makes it so much easier to empty. And the loops are for my thumbs. It makes it easier to open with my fluctuating hand function. So if any of you need modifications like shorter for the 500 ml leg bags, just let me know in the comments below. I'll now take it over to the machine and sew up one side and down the other. Now to add the buttons. I usually measure 3 inches down and 3 inches across. And since this is 6.5 inches across, I'm going to mark my first button at 1.5 and my second button at 4.5. And here, with the 1/2 inch seam allowance, you will see that the button placement is perfect for this bag. Here are the buttons I will be using. They are 22mm. So let's take it over to the sewing machine and I will show you how I sew them on. You can always sew them by hand, but I find it easier to sew them on the sewing machine. What I do is drop the feed dogs, set the machine to zigzag, and then set the width of the zigzag to the width of the buttonholes. And I hand crank the machine so I don't break my needle. Here is where I would add the adjustable strap if you use different leg bags. If you use the same leg bag, you could add extra buttons to the bottom and measure it out the same way we did the top buttons. I will be skipping this step since I only prefer having the 2 top buttons. Now we're going to add the handles. What we do is measure and mark where you would like the handles to be. I kind of just eyeball everything, but I'm going to take it to the sewing machine and reinforce stitch both handles. Now to sew the outer fabric to the inner fabric, I'm placing it right side to right side, and I'm going to be sewing up each side. Being a scrap buster, my measurements are going to be a little off, but I still have enough room to sew a 1/2 inch in on the green and still catch the rainbow fabric. To add the thumb loops, I'm crossing the ends and then inserting it into the corners of the top and into the corners of the bottom of the bag. Then I will be sewing it and reinforce sewing it. I will then sew all the way around the outside and leave a hole just large enough to turn and top stitch. See me lift the foot to pull the fabric to leave a hole just large enough to turn, and then I will add my last thumb loop. Then I will trim around the edges with a pair of pinking shears and turn the fabric right side out, and I'll take it over to the machine to top stitch. And since snaps are excruciatingly difficult, I went ahead and did those off camera. And there we have it, the finished leg bag cover. This is how I wear it. I hope you enjoyed, and thanks for watching.